Today, President Trump declares a state of emergency to protect the inauguration amid FBI warnings of a huge uprising. And Joe Biden announces his aim is to defeat the NRA. Oh boy, 2021 is a blast, and it's just getting started. We've got a lot coming up, and it starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sarah Gonzalez, today joined by two of my very good friends, Jaco Booyens, host of the Jaco Booyens Show, who, by the way, has a huge announcement coming up on this show. We got the exclusive here at the news and why it matters. We will get into that later. Also, my good friend, back in Dallas in the flesh, Elijah Schaffer, host of the show Slightly Offensive, which you can see now on BlazeTV. Well, you can always see it on BlazeTV. I don't know how much longer you'll be able to see it.
I'm just happy I got here because they were picking up a lot of people at the airport and blocking a lot of people from flying, arresting people as they showed back up at their home states in Hawaii and different things. So I was just, when I exited DFW.
Were you looking all around?
Well, the cops were there picking people up from my terminal.
Really?
Yeah.
So you took a breath.
I was like, they were there, they were grabbing people, and I was just like, grabbed my bags and just was like, all right, I'm safe. So I'm glad to be here, actually.
Were you in disguise?
Unfortunately, no, and I wasn't even wearing a mask. But I was just like, I just held my breath.
So you were the opposite.
I held my breath as they grabbed people and just said, Lord, I just want to see my wife and my dog. And he also answered prayers. I get to see you guys, too.
Oh, well, we're glad that you're here. We're glad that you're safe. And by the way, we've been covering it on the show, what you've been doing, the good work that you've been doing, but thank you for doing it and putting, your safety and your life on the line to make sure that you get the exclusive footage. It really does mean a lot to us.
And
so
thank you to Kez as well.
Hey, it's our network. Our network's really good. I'm just saying that, I want to point this out real fast before we jump into this.
Yeah.
The only reason why I feel emboldened to be able to go out and to do things that even piss off, Representative Eric Swalwell or get the FBI involved and take all of liberal Twitter against me is because we have a company that stands behind their employees. And this is why it's not just a normal cancel culture company who just fires people. I mean, Glenn Beck, the founders, even Tyler Cardin, the CEO, from the executives and producers, they've all said, we are not dropping you. No matter who drops you, we'll stand behind you. And this company, which is why people that support it, support the truth. And I'm just very grateful to be a part of this network.
Yeah, amen.
Well said.
All right, so jumping into today's headlines, the FBI is now warning that armed protests are being planned for at state capitals across the country in advance of Inauguration Day. It's supposed to be at all 50 state capitals from the 16th of January through at least January 20th, which is, of course, Inauguration Day, and at the U.S. Capitol from the 17th through the 20th. And that has, of course, led President Trump to declare a state of emergency in Washington, D.C., ordering federal assistance to aid local officials amid these claims. I think they just showed the poster. So those of you who are watching on YouTube or on BlazeTV or watching it on Facebook, you can see this poster. So these posters have been plastered all over the place. Refuse to be silenced. Armed march on Capitol Hill and all state capitals. It gives the information, which of course we are not condoning at all. I think that I will be joined by both of these fine gentlemen at the table when I say violence is not the answer here. It's definitely not what you want to do to get your point across that you are the good guys. So what are your thoughts, Jaco?
Yeah, 100% agree. And look, I can't be a hypocrite. The book I follow tells me I cannot go out and make vengeance mine. It just doesn't produce fruit. It produces death and bloodshed. And so, it's just not a solution. There are solutions that, yes, our voice has to be heard. And yes, we've got to rise up. But you got to look at the poster, armed march. Mm-hmm. And so, you're declaring, that's declaring a fight, and so.
And it does say, very small, just to add to that, over 200 years ago, our founding fathers fought for the rights and liberties of this nation. Don't let their efforts be in vain.
That is true, but they fought in a way back then, I guarantee you, with the hope that it should never happen again. If you go to the Battle of Franklin, where blood was in the streets, you couldn't walk but step on bodies. Every church was a hospital in Nashville, Tennessee. I guarantee you those men, like any father, would say, I'm doing this so you don't have to. right? So why do we want to go back? And people would then say, well, Jaco, we need our freedom. Absolutely, but there are ways to do it without this. Because honestly, you got to think about this. Because when you shoot, someone shoots back.
Yeah.
Okay, and so we got to be really sober-minded in our country at the moment, and not take issues and elevate them to God status, or take people and elevate them to God status. We got to be very sober-minded. We got to think long-term. The nation is still more important, okay, than just franchising everything.
Elijah, I'm very interested in your perspective on this, because you were, as we just discussed, on the ground for the chaos that ensued at the Capitol not that long ago.
Yeah, I saw people get their entire cheeks ripped open, teeth fall out, holes in the sides of their head. I mean, I saw people, I think I witnessed the first assault where they knocked a Capitol officer out. She hit her head on the stairs and seemed to go sort of unconscious. I think there's a lot of violence, more than you want to see, especially for your own countrymen. I think, no matter where you hold on this argument, I don't think anyone wants to be in a place where we're seeing Americans die or hurt. Even if you feel, one is justified over the other, if you love cops, hate cops, love the people that did Capitol Hill or hate them, these are Americans and they're fighting each other, and it's sad that we're here. Mm-hmm. I do want to point out on this sign, though, I'm kind of alarmed at it, this poster, for number one, not to be rude to the right wing or as self-described patriots, but a lot of the artwork is very boomerish. We're not the best at design. Whenever I go to left-wing events, a staple is very well-designed, communist-esque style posters calling for violence. And when you look at this poster, it has all the tenets, the colors, the very, Soviet Russian-looking artwork. Not only that, but the Statue of Liberty is mirrored the opposite direction, which is similar to the flag being hung upside down. It's anti-liberty. And, never, I think, actual gun owners and people who own firearms know the implications, and firearms bans in D.C. don't publicly call for the armament of people, because they know the risks that come in actually being armed. Mm-hmm. This sounds like somebody who doesn't own a firearm that made this, or doesn't understand the responsibilities of firearm ownership. And so, I'm also alarmed there's no organization tied to this. There's no group. I've never seen a right-wing event without a group. Only left-wing events do this, where they just have a random call to violence or action. So I would have to say that, this appears to be a false flag to me. It's, I would also say too that most right-wing people just organize on Facebook. They don't plaster signs around the city. It's a very left-wing tactic, a very grassroots mobilization. Because why would you post posters around Democrat cities to mobilize Republicans? That doesn't make sense, because you're going to mobilize Democrats pretty much exclusively. I don't think this is a legitimate right-wing event. And I just will end with this. Anyone calling people to lead an armed insurrection on the government is very foolish, because if you think that the response that they're going to get is similar to what we saw at the Capitol, they're stupid, because I believe that the response at the Capitol was either due to negligence, intentional withholding of force, or both, probably both. And as of right now, the sentiments in the country, if anybody takes up arms, if anybody seeks to assault a government building, I believe there's going to be a lot of bloodshed on both sides, and it's a very dangerous precedent, and one people should avoid.
If I can, just real quick, many traps have been set in 2020, and here we go into 2021, and do not fall for the traps again. Do not show up at this as a true conservative that loves this country armed, because if you go look for a fight, you'll get a fight.
Exactly.
You're going to get a fight. And I agree with you. The person that did this, do they understand the power of ammunition? Do they understand that, again, the other side shoots back, and then it's death? And now you've got grieving mothers, and you got families destroyed. And this is how you tear a nation apart. This is how you do it. If this is a false flag, and I lean in your direction on this, for sure, Elijah, it's a trap. Don't step into the trap, because it can't do the conservative movement any good at all. It only reaffirms their point that, oh, you are the savages.
Right.
Oh, you are the hoodlums in the nation, where we've stood by very peacefully for a whole year when our cities are shut down. People lose their jobs. People commit suicide because of financial strife, and just stood by. And no, you don't just stand by, say nothing. You use within the law your parameters, and you do fight back. But honestly, Sarah, the way you change this country is you take the communities back. The conservative movement is terrible at planning long term. They do not strategize. The church doesn't strategize. We pivot, 4 year to 4 year. We vote for president. We don't know the down ballot. We don't know who's the PTA leader at your kid's school. And this is where they beat the conservative movement in Philadelphia, county by county. Now, yes, they stole stuff, sure, but still, they rule the inner cities. Why? Because they care. Because they do the hard work on the ground, right? Long-term planning. And all of a sudden we wake up one morning and we go, well, how did this happen? Because we're asleep. That's how you fight back. You got to take communities back, right, within the rules of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously, Jaco with some great points. I know that there are a lot of Americans out there who are frustrated, who are saying there's no other way, no one listens to us, the media is in the left's back pocket. How do we get our point across? Do you agree with Jaco that that's where it starts?
Well, I would say this, I agree ideally with Jaco. I know what you're saying. But I also need to, make the left wing aware of what happens when you censor people, when you ostracize, when you demonize, dehumanize people. For 4 years, a lot of decent people have been backed into a corner to where they do feel like they're in desperation, that they can't do anything. And most of them, all they held on to was their faith, their family, and their jobs. But with the shutdowns, I would say that public sentiments against police have changed to be a bipartisan perspective, where a lot of people who have lost their jobs with police enforcement and the executive branch putting that into place, people have lost their church communities and their faith has gone into struggle. Mental health problems have skyrocketed, suicides have skyrocketed. I mean, you can take a very stable man, but you rip his faith in his his church and his job away. I mean, people are at a boiling point, and then in response to this, you censor the president they elected, you call everybody who voted for him a terrorist. Even if my video evidence shows that the violence started before his speech ended, President Trump's, you still blame every single person. You start attacking journalists, trying to put them in jail who recorded this because of their political affiliation. I mean, I don't see this leading to a position to where anybody's going to feel like they can win back through grassroots. And I'm scared for our country. I was sick the day that after the Capitol violence, I was shaking in my bed, like I felt like I had a fever, because I said, man, if what they did with Charlottesville, where one person, which was tragic, Heather Heyer, died, where they kept that focused for 4 years. And even though there were so many left-wing riots, they just kept, but Charlottesville. And then, Trump didn't even say that white supremacists were good people. He condemned them. Biden, the next running president, still used that lie 4 years later. I'm going, if they were able to manipulate society and take so much and extrapolate and demonize the right wing from this one event, I warned my viewers a month ago. I said, if you get violent, if you do this, it's a trap. I go, because they're going to use this to crush political opposition. And once I realized that the people had done what they had done, and when I'm watching the footage away from what happened, I'm going, America as we know it is over. They will use this event not just to hold people accountable for violence or crime, which they should according to law. They will use this to dehumanize, deconstruct, and disempower every right-wing person they can. And unfortunately, it looks like I wasn't wrong, and I think we were all bracing for this, and it's going to get worse.
Are you planning on being at the Capitol or anywhere if these are taking place?
I am not in a position to be able to travel at the moment.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll hope that there is someone as courageous as Elijah to be on the ground. I know the Daily Caller, Richie, over at the Daily Caller.
I think a lot of people are not aren't really in positions. I think they're coming down on all the journalists,
which is terrifying.
Yeah,
I mean, that's terrifying. So now we don't get what's really going on the ground.
Again. Look, Elijah, I'll say this: where I've seen these situations play out in the world and how they get rectified. I'm talking serious genocide, and normally it's Africa, right? It's just insane. Venezuela, all these places. It's free market. You turn a nation in free market, and that means take ownership back. I'm just telling you, cause and effect. We are here today, whether you like it or not, because we have watched idly over time as they've eroded our education system. We stood by, we've taken separation of church and state and men. If you're a believer and you have any faith in this nation, you can't open your mouth, you can't say anything. Our 501c3 stood back and they couldn't say anything. And so it is a small forfeit, inch by inch by inch, and then you you're backed up against the goal line, and you're defending the red zone all of a sudden. And yes, it broke out in Civil War once, and maybe it does again. And then, sure, here's what happens in a fight. Two guys beat the living snot out of each other. They bleed, and then they realize, okay, now we're both hurting. Our kids are embarrassed. And then they get to a place to say, well, we better find a way to pick it up again. Yeah. And so it's not needed to go there. Sometimes it does.
Yeah.
But free market can do a lot. And I think we need to do better at having alternatives in this country to just entrusting a select few, right? Because there's enough money in this country to have had news networks over the last decade, right? That would be fair and balanced, right? There is enough. Right? The players are just not playing. We need to engage and get the players to play, to compete.
All right, we've got more coming up. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Omega XL. Now, if you are one of millions of Americans who you just live in constant pain, maybe you've reached the age where just everything hurts when you get out of bed in the morning. Maybe you're carrying a new baby around like a sack of potatoes all day, and you're like, wow, I thought I was younger than this, and then I had a kid, and now I hurt all the time. Whatever your aches and pains are from, you got to try Omega XL. It is backed by 35 years of research, and it attacks the inflammation that is actually causing your pain. So you don't realize it. You're hurting, you've got arthritis, you've got a knee pain, whatever it is. Usually it's the inflammation in your body that is causing that pain. So taking Tylenol, taking, whatever over-the-counter stuff, rubbing a cream on it, that's not going to actually get the root of the problem addressed. It's just going to mask it. Omega XL will get down to that inflammation, and it will solve your problem for you and get you out of pain. The doctor that runs Omega XL, I had a conversation with the doctor, and she said, with my prescription pad, I can't write anything that comes close to doing what Omega XL does. And when a doctor actually says that about something that's natural, you know that it really works, because doctors don't usually sign on to this unless they know that it works. You got to try it if you are in pain. Go to Omega XL right now, omegaxl.com/news. You can get a bottle and then a second bottle for free when you buy the bottle. You can go to omegaxl.com/news. That is omegaxl.com/news. Back in a minute. With the discussion that we were having on, journalists and censorship and all of this, we've got Elijah Schaffer on the show who knows all about that because he has had to deal with a lot of that over the past, 6 months? I mean, it's not just recently. I'd like to talk about Jaco, your announcement.
Yeah, very, very exciting. And so proud to be able to do it here. And I think we can all agree that you don't want to build your community, your family dynamic, your platform profile, your business on a social platform where you can be turned off, because we saw how quick they can just rip the carpet out from people. So for the last 2 years, I'm very proud to be a co-founder of this, but there's incredible people behind this. For the last 2 years, we've been building a brand new full service with all the features you love, social media platform. This platform was going to launch in February, soft launch, and then March. And as God would have it, we didn't know. And this was planned a year ago. All this happens, and the team's working through the night, decades of experience behind the scenes, and it's called Free Space. And it's a full-on social media platform with all your features and more, such as VRS, Value Reinforcement System. And the Value Reinforcement System makes sure that you do not get marginalized, you cannot get turned off. There's no gamification that pushes you in a direction and brings content to whatever they want to push to you. You decide the parameters of what you see. You see everything. You're allowed to form your own informed opinions, both sides of the aisle, get all the information. You're not blocked off from certain territories in the country. If you have a community that's your community, your whole community gets to interact with you. The algorithm doesn't decide. When Marsha Blackburn had Zuckerberg on the Congress floor and said, Mark, do you guys have trafficking activity on your app? His answer, he pled the fifth, and then he said it's an algorithm. Correct. A human being wrote the algorithm. This time around, no human being went and wrote an algorithm that's going to marginalize you or turn you off. So and this is Free Space. It's built. It's not being built. Mm-hmm. It's not coming in months to you. It's coming in days. We're talking about a week from today. The public will have their hands on a platform, which I've put in your hands today, right? And it's operating behind the wall at the moment, where they can truly go engage and build community. But the value reinforcement system is amazing because it rewards good behavior. Parents love this, and we've tested it in 200 markets. Parents love this, right? It reinforces good behavior, right? It builds community for you, with you, and you set parameters in your community. Now, it's going to have all the features, everything you do. Hosting, posting, chat. It's got an incredible internal function that works almost like a Zoom, where you can have multiple go-to meetings, et cetera, et cetera. So very exciting. Our nation needs it. There's phenomenal people behind the scenes. So it's called free space, and truly, it's free space. And you said it earlier, it's not for the extreme left, it's not for the extreme right. It is for unbiased, true conversation and community. And with some really cool apps that someone like a Facebook, for instance, doesn't have. But this is a real competitor, and it's happening, and it was announced first right here with you, Miss Gonzalez. And you'll see it all over the news. It's coming. So next week.
It's easy to use, too. What I was going to say is that, people keep trying to make Twitter competitors like Gab or Parler, and they're not like the most user-friendly, and also not everybody who doesn't like work in politics wants to use those kinds of like text apps. Most people want to share pictures of their dog. Myself, I'd rather put my show up and videos up and engage with the audience. And it had a very familiar interface because it reminded me a lot of like Instagram or Facebook, like these trillion-dollar, billion-dollar companies. But yet it was like, wow, this works and actually functions well, which a lot of apps don't. But it's also with the similar icons and things that I'm used to and the functionality. So it's like, I'm going, oh, my dad could use this. Like my grandma could use this because my grandma can't use Parler, she couldn't. And so when I was going, I was like, oh, I could actually adopt this to different types of people, but it's still detailed enough that someone like myself, as a content creator, could functionally build an audience. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and you make a really good point. And that was in the design, in the brain. Look, I'm a mouthpiece. Those who really designed it said, look, we have to also allow a baby boomer to transition from Facebook and come over here and go, this makes sense. And then I've got it open here. I mean, you can see it. And the functionality, as you said, runs exactly what people would be used to this. And then some. Yeah. And then there's more, right? Yeah. And remember, you can't be marginalized. And you can't be turned off. Yeah. And a beautiful thing for someone like you and you, Sarah, you can actually monetize your content inside the platform, which Facebook does not allow you to do. So this is truly years and years of work by some really brilliant people to say, we got to have it stand alone, it's got to have its servers, it's got to be able to function, and give it to the people, and go have a voice, and go have amazing opportunity to build platforms and know with comfort, can't just be yanked from you.
Yeah, so suck it, Twitter. That's right. All right, so free space. I guess is there a
free space?
They will have it. You'll have it available in the app stores.
All over every app store. Okay. It's in the final process through the app stores. It'll be available next week. On Thursday, today's Tuesday. On Thursday, we'll launch another tease here of a landing page where people can go to.
Exclusive here on the News and What Matters again.
They can go to and they can go say, hey, I'm here. I'm excited. Yeah. There's community building opportunities. There's an incredible philanthropic arm embedded where you can pick. And then, of course, I made sure with the team, thank you, that we are going to protect children from predators. We're going to make sure that children are not being sexualized through this platform. And we'll take a hard stance as a platform, which I couldn't get any of the others to do, to say, we got to protect our children, our future, and people should be able to have their own communities, their own identity, right? And not marginalize them.
Well, we can't wait, and thank you for sharing that news. I know the viewers are going to be very, very excited about it. On the subject, though, of turning people off, when we're talking about today's headlines, as if we haven't gone through enough of how companies are shutting people off, 2 banks that previously did business with President Trump are cutting him off following what happened on January 6th. So Deutsche Bank they have announced that they will no longer do business with President Trump. And Signature Bank went even farther. This is the one that really pisses me off. They said that they would not do business with any lawmaker that voted against certifying the 2020 election results. So all of his banking that he does in those 2 institutions, he is going to have to find new banks. So now we're to the point where the banks are determining what Congress should be doing, because they're talking about lawmakers who vote. I mean, what happens when there's really something? Well, let me just say this. there are a lot of you out there who have very good reason to believe that there, was fraud. We don't know. Of course, we don't want to get taken down. So I'm here to tell you that Joe Biden is going to be your next president, and that's all that I'm really allowed to say. But what happens when there is even more and more and more and more rumblings that are going on that there is something sketchy? This is basically banks saying we're twisting Congress's arm, that if they do this, we're not going to do business with them personally. Where does it end?
Well, I think it started with J.P. Morgan Chase shutting down the bank accounts of Proud Boys, right?
Yes.
So this was in the personal and private sector. They were saying, okay, you can't bank with us. But you have to realize that in the matters of wealth, there's public wealth, which is like what people know about Donald Trump, and then there's actual wealth, the money that moves in the greater circles, money that people can't imagine. You're talking about trillions and trillions of dollars. People say Jeff Bezos is the richest man in America.
Not close.
He's the richest public CEO, but there are families out there with trillions worth of net worth that work and operate in these banks, and these banks, are often working in conjunction with the World Economic Forum, with the UN. They're trying to do this great reset, this economic program, and they want to squash populism because it threatens their power. It's not a conspiracy. This is open news.
Fact,
they admit it, right? It's fact. And when they're not doing banking with him, this is what we're seeing is where the global system, or some might even call it the New World Order, is reimagining through pressure what a republic is. Because a republic should be that elected officials are not acting in their own interest, but are acting on the interest of their constituents, even sometimes against their own good conscience, to let the government know that this is what my people want, right? I mean, they're not breaking the law, but they're saying even if they disagree, just like an electorate, right? The Electoral College might not agree with their constituency, but they have to vote upon those lines. Yeah. So what we're seeing now is when someone like Hawley, or let's say Cruz, representing a red state, a red region of people who 3/4 of Republicans believe that fraud, there was a great amount of fraud in the election through evidence, and he's representing them. What we are seeing is that the world systems, technocracies are saying, if you're a politician, even if we haven't bought you out yet, if you do not fall in line with the swamp and what we want, to where you do what we're saying, not what your constituents want, we will destroy your personal credibility, your life, and possibly force you to lose your election because we will not fund you. And so you see how corrupt this is, that they will ruin you from the inside out if you don't fall in line with what these global leaders want. And it should shock Americans, but not really be a surprise to realize that maybe perhaps we don't have a republic.
Yeah, okay.
Well, there's a big difference between a republic and a democracy. Number one, we are a republic. People go democracy. No, we're a republic. But you're saying something that's so true, and I don't know if the viewer knows this. If you do, I'm not talking down. But over 60% of the world's federal reserves, right, are owned by private individuals, such as the Rockefellers, etc. Do you for one second think those banks that are owned by those individuals are all of a sudden going to play nice? No, they're not. Earlier I made a statement, and here comes the opportunity. Whenever there's a wall, right, there's something to conquer, Elijah. That's just how I was raised. So all of a sudden now, private wealth in this country, you still own your private wealth, can now go do things like, for instance, a bank called Cross First Bank. Cross First Bank saying, we're pulling away from there, and they're pulling people from all over the place saying, come bank with us. And that's what you need to see happen now. People need to move away from these massive conglomerates. Decentralize your life. Mm-hmm. Don't put everything you have with one company, like even this bundle stuff. Yeah. I'm bundling my whole life over here. No, don't do that. Think, people, okay? Take control back, because we need private institutions. The private sector now is the moment to rise up and revolutionize this country through commerce.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah. All right. We've got more to come. Stay tuned. Back in a minute. Scary times.
The bank called Cross First.
Is that where everyone's doing their work?
$1 billion, for $10 billion.
Good news abounds, everyone. Joe Biden announced in a statement that he aims to, quote, defeat the NRA, which really goes in line with all of his talk about unity. And he just wants the country to unify and come together, all while he's saying, hey, half of you guys who own firearms and, support an organization that fights for you to be allowed to own your firearms legally with the Second Amendment, I'm coming after you. It's just half of America, though, so it's fine. So Biden telling us another one of his priorities. So yesterday we heard that Joe Biden prioritizing Black, Latino, Asian, female-owned businesses as far as giving them COVID relief. He's going to prioritize. So basically, if you're a white man, you're screwed. Now he's saying that he wants to defeat the NRA. I'm getting a little nervous here, guys. Should I not be scared? Am I in line to be scared?
So does that not incite violence?
Well, no, because he's getting rid of the weapons.
No. You're calling. No, you're flat. You can't.
I agree with you.
You can't get rid of the NRA without going after the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
Right? And just think for a second, if the Second Amendment can come down, then what other amendment is going to go? So yes, that's a call for a fight.
Well, and this is what gets me too, is that there were so many people who were conservative but said they couldn't vote for President Trump because, his tweets hurt their feelings or something. And I'm like, you are voting to take away our Second Amendment because Joe Biden has made it very clear that now, we could have the discussion whether or not he believes any of the things
whether it's him or those behind him.
Right, exactly. But whatever the case may be, he is going to come after our Second Amendment rights. He has already said that he wants to ban semi-automatic firearms. We know how Kamala Harris feels about it as well. And by the way, high-capacity magazines. And he wants to, of course, tax owners of semi-automatic firearms, and which, by the way, that's like most of the weapons that we all own.
They might do it.
Semi-automatic is a very common weapon.
Yeah, the tax is per element. It's not just the weapon. It's the
per item.
It's per item.
Yes.
Sorry, it's the magazines. So you have 10 magazines. It's insane. So guys are basically just going to say, I can't pay the tax.
Right.
$100,000 tax bill.
Right. Congratulations to everyone who couldn't stand voting for the president and had to vote for someone else.
Well, I'm saying it's probably going to happen because if they control the House now, the Senate and the executive, and when we saw John Roberts, who saw evidence of fraud and in his own meetings didn't want to call, he was saying who was going to be responsible for the riots. Basically, we saw the fall of the Supreme Court and that they wouldn't actually see a case that should have been seen from the Attorney General here in Texas because they were afraid of the outcry. We have lost our major institutions that even those who are meant to interpret the Constitution are so afraid of these corrupt politicians and what they might cause in terms of a civil war that, I don't trust even the Supreme Court to defend our Second Amendment in this way. And I think that they're figuring out legal ways to destroy this. I think this is a very scary moment in something that should wake a lot of people up, that we are living in an era where we are looking a lot like a Maoist country. And this is a complete takeover of everything that our forefathers fought for. And they fought for this to actually happen. And they knew this would happen. This is why, as amendments were written, this was put in place to make sure that once this happened, that there were protections in place so that we could protect ourselves from the government. And if the government assaults us, and as we're even seeing now, is pestering people and getting involved even with credentialed journalists and going after them for political reasons, it is a sick and disgusting place that we are at. But thank God that we have these protections right now. And rather than living in fear of if they go away, they haven't gone away. And I encourage people to continue to exercise your amendments, your free speech, your Second Amendment, and just make sure that you have what you need to protect your family.
Yeah. And to add to that, as if it wasn't divisive enough, Joe Biden also kind of in hot water because one of the women that he has nominated this is the head of the Civil Rights Division at the Department of Justice. She has made the following statement that melanin endows blacks with greater mental, physical, and spiritual abilities, something which cannot be measured based on Eurocentric standards. So this is what we're in for the next 4 years. Just a lot of divisiveness. You thought the President Trump was divisive, guys? The left? Boy, just wait.
Look, someone said this to me, and this is way before the election, right? A couple things. They had hoped that Hillary Clinton would win. Same person said, Jacob, Barack Obama was not radical enough for the cabal, the party behind him. Then they said the same thing. They said maybe the Senate could protect Joe Biden because maybe he's not as radical as those who control. No, that's gone. Now you truly have a puppet. And the forces that turn the bank on and off, we're talking about, international monetary funds, IMF and all these guys. Now all of a sudden, I don't know, even if Joe Biden as a president had a conviction to go, you know what, something deep down inside of me still say, we got to love Americans. I don't know how he stops the avalanche behind him, those who made him. Mm-hmm. Okay, because that was the Trump thing. They didn't make him, so they couldn't break him within the law, right? And that was the major frustration because he was a thorn. Now I don't know. With the Senate not being, even if Joe Biden had some sort of a moral compass or something, I think even that's to decide.
Yeah. All right. Well, if all this good news wasn't enough, we've got more coming up. Stay tuned. Back in a minute. In other news of unity and healing, Project Veritas released a new video today exposing Michael Beller, who is principal counsel for PBS, the public broadcasting system. Just as a reminder, PBS does take taxpayer money for their organization. So keep this in mind. But principal counsel for PBS, this is his conversation with an undercover journalist discussing Trump supporters and exactly what should be done with us. Watch.
Then when Biden wins, you go through all the Republican voters, and Homeland Security will take their children.
Homeland Security will take their children away.
And we'll put them into re-education.
And we'll put them into re-education camps.
Which are unique. Trump is close to Hitler.
What are you going to do if Biden wins? Go to the White House and throw Molotov cocktails. That's good. That's really good, you guys.
These kids who are growing up knowing nothing but Trump, for 4 years, you gotta wonder what they're going to be like.
You gotta wonder what kids growing up with Trump are going to be like. They're raising a generation of intolerant, horrible people, horrible kids.
Enlightenment camps.
Right. But it's cute because they'll call them enlightenment camps.
They're nice. They have Sesame Street characters in the classrooms.
They have Sesame Street characters in the classrooms. Oh, they watch PBS all day.
Home and watch it. Dumb. Most people are dumb. It's good to live in a place where people are, educated and know stuff. And can you imagine if you lived in
It's good to live in D.C. where people are educated.
Towns or states?
Could you imagine if you lived in one of these other towns or states where everybody's just stupid?
What's great is that COVID is spiking in all the red states right now.
COVID is spiking in all the red states. That's great. Because either those people won't come out to vote for Trump in the red states.
Or a lot of them are sick and dying.
Or a lot of them are sick and dying. So, when we want to talk about tolerance and unity, what is more unifying than wishing death upon Trump supporters and wanting to put their children in re-education camps? Nothing to see here, guys. Just a public broadcasting network that takes taxpayer money.
You know what it looks like when you make an agreement with the devil? That's what you look like. Yeah. And that's how you speak. And you're talking about my children. Okay? So come to my face, buddy. Come to my face. Come say it here. You're not taking nobody's kids. In my world, when a guy's talking about taking people's children, he's a pedophile. Okay? You're talking like a pedophile. I'll go straight up. That's hate speech.
That is hate speech.
That is inciting.
If we're going to qualify things,
that is hate speech.
It's not inciting violence. It's just like literally violence. Like, if you want to say speech is violence,
right.
He's saying throw Molotov cocktails as commands of violence towards government
Probably
buildings.
one of the largest cowards in the country. Talking
at a bar.
Anything.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure he probably would pawn this off as, oh, well, I was just joking. It was just a joke. But it's like, okay.
That's when people are serious. When they say joking, you really, what the heart's filled with, the mouth runs over with.
Right. And
that's real.
Jokes should be funny.
That's how a lot of people feel, by the way.
Yeah, that's real.
I embed that's a lot such an elitist, that's a total DC
I embed a lot
say.
there in DC, and people genuinely think that that they know better. This is the elitism pandemic, is that they're in such a cesspool of an echo chamber that they think that everybody who isn't there is dumb, and that everybody who wants just their own rights, their own liberties, again, a republic, have their own representation in their own areas, that they just don't know good enough, and that the state should take control. These are evil, sick, twisted people, and they really would be okay if you died. And you see he's laughing at that. He's going, I'm okay if those people die. They laugh at your death. They think, for most of you watching this, that your life is valueless. And that's why you say, well, how can they just have these shutdowns that ruin our lives? That's because they don't care if you die.
They don't care about the people. They've never cared about the people. It's about them. It's about staying in office. Both sides of the aisle, by the way, okay? There's corruption on both sides. They're all about their own heights. They don't serve the people. Those days are gone. Elected by the people for the people. It's time we get back there.
Yeah.
Look, I'm the guy who was an immigrant and said, I can't believe you guys don't have term limits. I can't believe people can just make this a career thing and not solve any problems and just take care of themselves and siphon money off and come up with programs so they can just siphon money off. It's insanity.
Well, when you hear stuff like this coming from the left so often, you empathize with, people who are tired of being gaslit, right? I mean, you can understand the overwhelming sense of just frustration with the conservative right, with, the average American, with someone in flyover country who may be in a red state, who might even lean left, but is just tired of being talked to like they're stupid because they own a farm.
Exactly.
I mean, you can understand.
Only feeding the nation.
Right.
Only feeding the nation. You idiot. Are you going to stop eating? Are you going to farm yourself? Listen, did I not just hear a guy call Donald Trump Hitler?
Yeah.
And then he's talking about putting kids in camps?
Right. Yes. The irony
mental
there.
illness.
Yeah, but that's where it comes to as well, like where they say, oh, people who believe in two genders are just bigoted, they're mentally ill, they haven't learned enough. And you go, you're the one who looks between your legs and can't tell what your sex
What
is.
it is.
I'm not the mentally ill one.
Right.
I have no problem with people playing make-believe, children or adults. It's a free country.
Yeah.
But it's like, you can't twist this on us, saying that we're the Nazis when you guys are the ones full of hatred. You're the ones who think that you're better than everyone, and then you think that people dying that aren't a part of your political party is an okay thing. No. That is the recipe for a Holocaust. That's the recipe for a genocide, or at least for political marginalization. You're going,
exactly.
I don't like DC. I think it's disgusting. I think the people there are horrible. Every time I go there, I just want to go home. But I will say this, that I don't want those people to die.
Right.
Of course not.
And that's the difference.
Because you got a moral bone in your body. You got moral fiber. They don't. This is what I'm saying. It's like an agreement with Satan himself. They don't care about life.
Yeah. Amen. All right. Back in a minute. On so many fronts.
Evil. That's straight pure evil. Now that's
Hey, don't forget, if you have not yet gone to wherever you get your podcasts, your audio podcasts, I know you like to see our smiling faces every day, but wherever you get your podcasts, go there, rate and review the podcast. Make sure to subscribe to it as well, because when you do that, more people are able to find this news program, which we know is the very best and your very favorite. Hey, here are a couple reviews for you from 1970 JRT, who says it's so nice to have a trusted news source in a time where big tech is censoring everything and bending the facts to fit their narrative. I thank God Glenn Beck has the balls to keep this wonderful channel going. Nice to have Sarah back. Always wonderful to hear wisdom from Jaco and Eric. Keep up the great work.
Glenn's balls.
Best podcast available. Now Elijah's thinking about things that he doesn't want to be thinking.
I didn't think you read this before you read it, did you?
There it is.
Hey, I'm glad JRT spun it straight. You know?
Yeah.
The chutzpah.
Here's one more. Cajun conservatives said it's better than the 5. They blow the 5 on Fox out of the water. This is the best roundtable in media. Just the news that matters and the most insightful people telling you why. I get nothing from Fox anymore. The truth and entertainment live at the Blaze.
Yes.
There you have it. I mean, we don't mean to brag or anything, but we're kind of awesome. So make sure that you go there. Maybe you'll see your review. We'll read it on
5
air.
stars.
You got to go there, rate it, review it, and subscribe to the News and Why It Matters wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks, guys.